Good day, everyone. I'm Danny Burke, and I'm here to talk about some specific trends that are affecting the educational world right now. The trends I will be discussing today reside within the very bedrock of not only the educational world, but in every profession. These are the principles of integrity, fairness, ethical behavior, transparency, democracy, equality, and diversity in education. But before I begin, I want to give a little bit of background on myself. So first off, who am I? I'm Danny Burke, like I said, and I'm currently a non-commissioned officer in the United States Army. I'm a sergeant promotable that is responsible for training and leading soldiers. I was a Spanish teacher for a couple of years after graduating college, but I felt pushed away from the profession by administrations that I felt treated me unfairly. However, this hasn't deterred me from my desire to teach in the future. So what do I do as an NCO in the Army? I have the opportunity to teach. The longer that I've been in the Army, the more parallels I see between what I do here in the Army and what I did as a full-time teacher. I have to form relationships, I have to plan, I have to train, teach, and network in order to be successful. And honestly, I think there's no better job that I could be doing right now to prepare myself for the future, to return to the classroom, than being a non-commissioned officer in the United States Army. And I can't wait to get back to the classrooms. It's just a matter of time as for whether it's going to be sooner or later. So this topic, other than any topic to this point, I believe ties more to my Army life than any other topic that we've discussed so far in our class. The nature of being a soldier and a leader in the Army is changing right now, and top brass in the Army, they're pushing us towards being a profession akin to the medical and legal professions and the educational profession as well, referring to it as a profession of arms. The relationship between myself and those around me, leaders and subordinates alike, is so important, and it has to be handled professionally. Having integrity, being transparent, and being ethical in all of my actions and decisions, as each one of these things definitely has an effect on my life in the military as far as the soldiers that I'm leading and the leaders that I work with. So to begin, I want to talk a little bit about integrity. This is the first and most important trend that I want to discuss, and I will continue to compare these trends between the Army and the education profession. The Army defines integrity as doing what's right legally and morally. Integrity is a quality that you develop by adhering to moral principles. It requires that you do and say nothing that deceives others. As your integrity grows, so does the trust others place in you, and the more choices that you make based on integrity, the more this highly prized value will affect your relationships with family and friends, and finally the fundamental acceptance of yourself. So integrity is a direct reflection of that person and their honesty. And in a world where lying is becoming more and more prevalent and acceptable, maintaining a high level of integrity can set you apart from others, including your peers. And I know I've spoken a bit about this, why this is relevant to the Army, but what it boils down to is trust. And trust is important in the Army as well as in the education, as any profession. The people of the United States, for example, they trust the armed forces to do what is necessary to complete the mission, and they trust that we will do the right thing and do it the right way. So if you take example and look at the recent bombings of what took place in Afghanistan with the Doctors Without Borders that were killed. And while it's been reported it was an accidental strike and that we never meant to harm any civilians, public outcry has been heard and people have been getting up in arms about the whole situation. The Army came out and apologized, but to many that wasn't enough. And another instance took place back in 2012 close to Kandahar Airfield where I served. Literally this happened just a couple of months before I went over there. That Staff Sergeant Robert Bales, he went off of his fob in the middle of the night and killed 16 people and injured 6 others. And they attributed it to traumatic stress syndrome after having so many deployments over there. But still, this was a serious and bad incident that hurt the mission and everything that we were trying to do in that area. The biggest thing we were trying to do over there at the time was win the hearts and minds of the people that live there. And that obviously was a big setback. And it demonstrated a violation in Sergeant Bales' ethical behavior, and it called America's integrity into question. Alright, so when it comes to integrity, one cannot have integrity without moral character, and moral character is defined by the Army is the Army's expert work creates a moral responsibility to act on behalf of a client rather than self, and thus demands a moral character of sacrifice and service to one's own self, units, and the Army's duty to the nation. So therefore, you have to have this moral character about yourself in order to be able to demonstrate your integrity. Because the Army operates under what we call the total leader concept. And this concept, in the graphic that you see right here, is a representation of the Army as a whole. You see at the top we have the Army profession, and under that we have trust. And under trust we have each one of the essential characteristics that make up leaders in the Army. The first one being trustworthiness. You have to be trustworthy. Without trust, you can't demonstrate any level of integrity. Second is the military expertise. Are you proficient in all of your tasks and drills, your job, everything like that? A spirit of corps. That's the pride that we take in the Army. So you have to have pride in what you do. Honorable service. Of course, honorable service speaks for itself. And then finally, stewardship of the profession. So the profession, especially as a non-commissioned officer, has been around for many, many years and is considered to be the backbone of the Army. So as an NCO, as a leader, do I want to continue to help maintain that backbone? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Do I take responsibility for maintaining that backbone? So, and then at the end, at the bottom, you see the moral and legal foundation of American values and Constitution. That's what gives us our power to act as leaders in the Army. We get it from the Constitution and from the people of the United States. So you see how it all builds up. Okay, so now this is going to tie over into what I call the trifecta. And as you see in the graphic now, I've got you can see three aspects of the Army here. You can see the people, you can see the Constitution and its elected representatives, and the armed forces. All three of these things have to come together in order to be one solid unit in order to defend our nation, right? So if us here as the armed forces, if we slack off, if we lose integrity, like I've explained about with Staff Sergeant Bales, or with the bombing with the Doctors Without Borders, then we begin to erode that relationship, and we become a weak aspect of that triangle. And then just like the Army, you have on the education side of the house where integrity and trust is also extremely relevant. So trust between administrators and teachers as one aspect of the triangle, and then you've got the parents and the students as another, and then ultimately we've got the educational departments that exist in all of our communities. Each one of those three make up your trifecta for the educational realm. And if trust and integrity isn't found in one of those, then it begins to erode. I mean, how many times have we seen education districts where leadership is called into question? Parents don't want to send their kids to schools, or if you have teachers that don't have a good relationship with the departments that they work for, they begin to get upset and they get mad. And once again, you have teacher strikes, or you have teachers that really don't teach their students as well as they could because the relationship isn't there. So these three have to work together in order to be an effective unit. As I said, in both the Army and the military. This work environment, I'm going to speak on this here in a little bit more, has to be positively maintained, or it just doesn't work. So tying this all back into integrity and trust, as I said, each element has to work, otherwise you don't have the trust. As individuals, as leaders in the Army or teachers, I guess I'm going to use a quote from my man Batman over here. From Batman Begins, where he tells one of the girls in the movie, says, "It's not who I am, but what I do that defines me." I feel that that's very applicable to a person's integrity, because everything we do as teachers, as leaders, as soldiers can be scrutinized based on the actions that we take. So we are the sum of our actions, and they equal out to the trust that we earn in others. So, for example, think of anyone in your life that you believe to be a person of integrity. How do they get there? Why do you look at them that way? And how do they remain as a person of integrity to you? What sort of things are they doing in their lives in order to be that way? Alright, so according to the Council of Chief State School Officers, State Consortium on Education Leadership, there are certain traits that educational leaders need to have in order to demonstrate integrity in education. And I quote, "Local and state education agencies and professional organizations hold educators to codes of ethics with attention to personal conduct, fiscal responsibilities, and other types of ethical requirements. The performance expectations built on concepts of professional ethics and integrity, and add an emphasis on responsibilities of leaders for educational equality and social justice in a democratic society." So therefore, leaders and teachers, are responsible for those around them and have to have a level of accountability that directly links to their integrity based on the actions that they take. So the CCSSO gives 3 elements that teachers and leaders have to have. And first is ethical and legal standards. Those demonstrating this element have professional ethics, integrity, fairness, and expect the same of others. So they behave in a trustworthy manner and use their positions to enhance education and the common good. And as an NCO in the Army, this element I think I most identify with. I've been part of sections and groups where I've had leaders who use their power and influence in such a manner that they don't build up the team, so to speak. Right? It's do what I say, not what I do, and that is the wrong type of attitude to have, especially as a leader in the Army. I guess I'm a team builder, so what I want to take everyone around me and help build the team up to be better. I can't stand people that just point and tell you to go this way and don't give any explanation, don't care what you have to say about it. You have to exhibit ethical behavior and at the same time work as a team in order to do stuff. Because, that's just the way it is to me. That's just the way it is. So the second element that they give is that a leader has to examine their personal values and beliefs. And knowing oneself and balancing out those beliefs with others, especially those of our organization, is indicative of a leader who wants to help an organization improve. So we all have beliefs, and they may in some ways conflict with our professional organizations, but by understanding those differences and seeking to improve them and balance them out with our own beliefs, we can take a look at our organizations and try to find ways to improve it. Like, for example, the Chick-fil-A, they're closed on Sundays. Some people, they go crazy about that, but hey, that's their belief, that's their personal thing. So why? Why do they do that? So, as the Army, I'm sure the Army has plenty of things that they explain to us that we have to do, and I don't exactly agree with, but I have to do it. But I can't find a way, after looking at myself and trying to balance out my beliefs, to improve, at least in some small way, the organization where I live and where I operate. So the third element is striving to maintain high standards for oneself and for those around you. And I'm a firm believer in this one as well, and I think this is extremely important, because as leaders we have to have a high level of standards for ourselves. We have to set that bar high, but not just for ourselves, we have to do it for those around us. Otherwise we wind up in situations where one person is the only person doing the work and other people are just standing off to the side watching, or their quality of work isn't anywhere near the same as the other person. This is how teachers have to operate with students as well. You can't just say, hey, go fill out this paper, you'll be okay. You have to set a high quality of work for them so that they're actually pushing themselves, so that they learn and they can grow. As leaders, we have to do this. So, as an NCO, I don't just tell my soldier, hey, go do this. I try to give them challenging tasks so that they can better themselves and learn and grow as well. So, as all leaders, getting into back into these topics, these trends that we're talking about, I want to talk a little bit about transparency. And transparency is huge, because look at a lot of the leaders in the world today and the problems that they're in because they lack transparency. They even if they're being honest in all of their dealings, they may have the appearance that they are not being honest, and that appearance alone is enough for many people to get out of here with that. So if we try to hide what we're doing, that's what's going to happen. So we have to be transparent in our actions, especially as public servants. We're held accountable and responsible for the things that we do. As teachers, teaching their students, your parents should be able to walk in any time that they want, sit in the back of the class and watch and see how their kid is learning. And if you're not doing things properly, then they can go talk to the administration and ultimately get you fired, and that's not what you want. As an Army sergeant, a lot of things I do, I have a secret clearance, so I do things in secret, but at the same time, it's public to a lot of other folks that come in and look, and if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to, I can get in major trouble. Look at the politicians and a lot of the hot water some of them have gotten in because they've lacked transparency. Alright, and this last few traits that I want to talk about that are trending is democracy, equality, and diversity. So starting with democracy and equality, these are important because leaders need to understand that their way might not always be the best way. They need to be open to receiving suggestions from their people. Additionally, when subordinates know that their opinions matter to the boss and that they can share them freely, this creates a better work environment for everybody, especially if you're a subordinate and you know that your boss will listen to what you have to say. I remember in many circumstances where I've had ideas when we were doing something at work and the boss was just like, whatever. So this creates a much better work environment where ideas can flourish and flow and grow as well, because you never know, that lowest guy on the totem pole might actually have a better way of doing something than what you do. and that's actually a great thing to have. And you may not always, take what that person has to say and do it, but just the fact that you're valuing their input helps that person understand. Hey, look, we're still a team. He might be in charge, but we're still a team, and that's the mentality that a lot of folks have to come to, because in the past a lot of it has been, hey, you go do this, go do that because I said so, and that's where we got to get away from. So like I said, what you're working to do is you're working to create that work environment where everything is, it feels a little bit more equal. You're more productive. You're a team rather than, like the image that you see sometimes going around the internet that shows the difference between a leader and a boss. You got that boss in the back throwing the whip saying go, but then you got the leader out front showing them what's up. So that's where we want to get to. And equality as well. Same thing when it comes to opportunities. Job opportunities. Make sure things are equal for men and for women, for Hispanics, blacks, whites, Asians, everybody. Everything needs to be open and free for especially for opportunities, because equality, both of these things, equality and that democratic feel at work are trending big time in today's society. Because where we're going, especially with like the advent of social media, everybody has opinions. We can't use that old school mentality of thinking anymore. And this leads directly into my last trend is diversity. Like equality is a much needed element in any work environment, and it helps breed different ideas from different perspectives, because we all come from different backgrounds. Like I'm who I am because of those experiences that have brought me to me here. You're different because of the experiences that have taken you to where you are right now. So we both have these different experiences, and that needs to be, taken advantage of in whatever situation. Like for example, if you're an administrator for a school, and you have a teacher that has a particular background and a particular problem, and you got that particular problem, you need to utilize that. And also, that's sort of one example of diversity. But you also have the, your cultural, ethical, and religious backgrounds that you're going to have underneath you, and you have to be cognizant of those, and you have to be respectful of those. Because nowadays, we have so many different people coming together and working together, especially from religious backgrounds. You can have Christians and Muslims working together. You've got people from every ethnic background coming together and to work. And that has to be an extremely respectful thing, especially in the Army. We're huge on this with equal opportunity. And if you're not following that, you can get in trouble big time. And that's just here in the Army. So, as the whole, the business world, everybody nowadays, they're starting to train folks on this. So equal opportunity is a big, big deal. And leaders need to understand this, and they need to embrace it. And they need to understand the amazing results that can come when differences are embraced rather than segregated or pushed apart. Honestly speaking, most folks nowadays won't stand for it to begin with. But leaders need to understand. Look, it's a new day, and we have to keep moving forward and move forward together, not apart. So that is my major recommendations. Based on all of these trends, is that leaders need to step back and evaluate themselves, and they need to see where they're at. Are you somebody that's trustworthy, that folks will want to come to? That integrity and trust is a major deal. Are you transparent in your dealings? Are you trying to hide things and keep things under the table? Because that can get you in trouble nowadays too. Your diversity. Are you embracing that? Are you trying to be equal with everybody around you? And these are all major things. I think this topic this week is one of the major topics, probably the most important topic that we've touched on since we've started the class, because they're all traits that make a leader a good leader. So, we talked about, we're talking about different trends for different reasons, but you have to be a good leader and embrace and be able to see what's going on and embrace that to move forward. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in the past, and other people are going to step past you. And like we talked about with community building, you're not going to be able to community build with anybody if you're a superintendent that nobody trusts or has a bad rep. If you're a teacher that has bad reputations with previous students and parents, that word gets around, and folks the students aren't going to, they're not going to respect you when they get there, and it's going to make teaching them a lot harder, and it's going to make learning from them a lot more difficult. As an Army NCO, if I'm that jerk, like for example, I had when I first came out of training, my very first unit, second or third day, this NCO was up there saying, "Hey, we're doing this new PT thing. Anybody know how to do it?" Well, I raised my hand and I ran up there. And the guy asked me, "So who are you?" And I told him, and he said, "You just get here?" I said, "Yeah." So he said, "Fall back in." So I jumped back in line, and I never wanted to work with that guy again because he simply didn't want my help because he thought, "Oh, he's a new person. He can't help me. He's dirt." And it's the same guy that used to run around and say, "I hate privates. I hate privates." Yeah, privates as in brand new soldiers. So I mean, that is the antithesis of team building. And from that point on, I never wanted to work with that guy again. And that's just my own personal experience. That one time, that's all it took. And that's all it takes as leaders, is one time to really screw things up and make it difficult for yourself. So this is huge. These topics are huge. We have to be truthful. We have to be honest. We have to be open. We have to embrace equality. We have to understand and utilize the opinions of our subordinates. Help them feel valued. That's like I said, that's one of the biggest things is team building. I'm a team builder, and that's really where I feel about this. So that's all my recommendations for these leaders: is be open, be willing to learn, and be willing to check yourself and see where you're at, and to try to improve yourself in order to do better. So, Dr. Miller, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you've made it to this point. I want to do something a little different, kind of get my voice out there and let you hear how passionate I really am about this. I can't wait to get back to a classroom whenever that is. I may wind up doing 20 years in the Army because of my situation, trying to get to a retirement. But regardless, I'm going to get back to teaching eventually. And the Army is the best thing that could have happened to me to help prepare me to go back into the classroom, because now I got, my discipline is so much better. I'm continuing to work on my teaching day in and day out, through all the different activities and things I do with my soldiers. So I am super ecstatic that the Army has been there for me. It's totally different than what I thought it was going to be. And I hope other folks out there in my similar situation that want to get back in the classroom can have this opportunity too. And this is my last class, so I'm trying to get all these assignments done, and I appreciate and thank you for your patience. I went from one what do we call it? Exercise that we've been doing to another, and now I'm getting ready to start another one. I'm working at 9 o'clock tonight. That's why if you look up behind me, it says 1:20. It's actually 2:20. That clock is still an hour off. So I'm trying to get all this stuff done. It's just there's so much going on in my life right now. But thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the video, and I look forward to hearing your feedback. Thank you.